Hello, dear friends, lovely audiences. Welcome to the East West Show. Jack Chow on the East West with the GNE TV. For quite some time, there's a subject that's been bothering me a lot. That is that I notice we are going on the left for too much. And by and by, I started to feel that there's a lead dragging us to the left step by step before we realize, once we do, we found, oh my God, we're in a different world. The same world, a different world from what we came here for as immigrants. Joining me is my good friend, PhD Dr. Jason Wen. He's a doctor of natural science for environmental professionals. However, he's here representing himself as a regular person. Between friends, we share the same subject. Dr. Wen, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Jack. Good morning, everybody. It's glad to be here.
And I'm so glad that I get you finally, because you have a very, very busy schedule. And I feel that someday, somehow, when there's time, I want to sit down with a friend for a long time to share my problem. My problem being, like I said, I've been dragged to the left step by step before I know. Once I do realize, I see things around me totally different from what I came here for. So, do you have the same kind of feeling or a similar kind of feeling?
I think the society, as you described, is kind of a balance. I also, it's changing along the time, also along the different time. I think to be left, towards the ideology, I think it's easier, get a more support, at least on the facial level. People can have a slogan, can have push left ideology. That's clearly is not really society should be balanced by the ideology and by the practical world where we live.
In other words, you yourself have noticed that too, that we're heading left.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Actually, it's a lot of, basically a lot of, I think it's called new. It's really reminding me a lot of things like we went through in China back, it's really like some kind of movement, some kind of ideology push. Many people do not tell the true feeling, truth with their life, rather than push for some kind of ideology to the left.
You're right. And I thank you very much for a mention about what happened half a century ago in China, the Cultural Revolution, right? That was exactly pushed by the leftists, right, to go way far down to the extreme left. That produces a fear to me. I'm asking myself, are we doing a revolution out here? What? Or what? Something like that. You have the same feeling, Leah?
Actually, you're right. It's easier to lead into a revolution by the left. You think about that. We describe this as the left. You think about the idea, ideology. Most people, I don't think they really believe that. It's just by maybe some other purpose, like a politically move. But back to real life, you cannot live with the extremely left. It's just not going to work.
I know.
That could be a good thing you can push. But again, look at the history, human, society. It's just not going to work. It's got to be balanced. Leading by some good idea, but again, majority of us got to live in the real world.
It should be, especially in a country under democracy, should be some kind of balance, right? That's why we call check and balance. Balance is the goal, to balance it, right? But the thing is that we do not see a balance. We see tilt. We see the society tilting to the left more and more with the incident after incident, movement after movement, going to the left, that produces a fear inside me. And I share this with lots of friends of mine. They have the same kind of feeling, right? For example, remember the third bathroom, the law, right? And do you recall back then in China, when the Cultural Revolution came, there are lots of people calling that way. They want to overturn the men's room for men rule. They say, who says men's room for men? Like that. Okay. Now, are we doing the same thing that China did?
I think you can see a very similar pattern. If you push to left, like ideology, for the normal people, they're hard to, voice their concern or against it. It's very, in terms of, pressure, like a peer pressure, it's very hard for people to say, I fight against these things. Left is always easy to be popular in terms of ideology, in terms of slogan and the movement. People, they think one thing, they may not fight. That's why this left can push pretty far, actually.
In other words, they are kind of taking the opportunity of people, a majority of people, they're not to fight against. So they're pushing it further and further. Am I right?
Yeah, just my observation. You think about it, and people always, except for the Oriental culture, they want to save the face. For example, I just heard in the radio I come in, they say, if you go see, actually this happened in Paris, in the Louvre, the museum. Some guy put his own painting over there because he had a chance to access. Put it for a couple of weeks, nobody know that is not a masterpiece supposed to be belong there. Everybody comments, oh, this is, people, they don't understand. They're already thinking, gotta be good here. They are thinking, visually say,
they could take it for
yeah,
granted,
but again, finally they found out, oh, this does not belong here. This is the pieces somebody, improperly put over there, but the people enjoy it with the same level of other artists' work. You think about this human nature, human behavior. If people use this kind of a human nature, they can push it pretty hard.
It's quite a good example, a vivid example, that how this extreme left thing can be inserted into our society, because we don't notice, right? Once we notice, we say, oh yeah, something new, huh? Something like that. Okay. Now, with that extreme left concept going, people are kind of intimidated of saying what they want to say. Do you think so?
Yeah, but they normally do not fight in front of everybody. That's why a lot of time you have because ideology has a nature, it's a good sense. There's a good sense people hard to fight. For example, everything equal. All this concept, nobody really can fight. But again, what does that mean exactly in real world? That's subject to a lot of interpretations.
And also with the, okay, now, let's put it this way. Go all the way to a federal court, right? It is federal court that found out from a humanity point of view that California jail is overcrowded by 13%. So we have to release those extra criminals out of jail, and then there is no jail, no elsewhere to hold them. They're out on the street. Now, with this whole issue, California creates a bill, a law called AB 109. Following AB 109, there's a Proposition 47, Proposition 57. They all go step by step. When the AB 109 law makes the early release of the criminals, the concerns are that they could recommit the crime going back again. So to prevent them recommitting crime, they create another law which is 47, they raised the elevator. They raised the threshold of the definition of criminal from $400 as stealing. They raised it to $950. In other words, so you are no longer committing a crime. So for that, and then 57, and to go on and on, those laws making the same logic. As a result, we see lots of early release on the street, right? As a result, as a consequence, one Whittier officer, Mr. Boyer, was killed by one of them, by one of those early release. Now, you look all the way from the bottom to trace to the point where these federal court, the judge made the decision that we are over 13% overcrowded from a humanitarian point of view. Mm-hmm. Okay, for the humanitarian point of view, they made orders California had to follow. Now, for Officer Boyer to be killed, is that from a humanitarian point of view? So you see, this whole thing pushes the concept. Okay, nobody will go against the Supreme Court saying that you're making a wrong decision. We shall discriminate them those. We shall treat them like animals. Nobody can say that. And yet, as a result, we see this end. This is how we are led all the way to we are. Do you think so?
Yeah, actually, I know this Prop 57 or this California law clearly early release a lot of, they call it minor convictions, you know, clearly increase or impact the society on the increase of criminal rate. Clearly, there's a lot more. We see it from the local society. You know, again, there's another balance here. Basically, that's a really similar issue. Basically, if you think about the argument or the correct or wrong or right or left, everybody has their point. But the whole society, I still think, no matter what kind of issue, you need to balance the interest. For example, one side you have humanity for normal people, humanity for prisoner. Now another side you gotta also burden of the society or the impact to the real life of the normal people.
Of course,
clearly you need to balance.
Yeah, when you talk about humanitarian, you're talking about an equality using one standard, right? You don't want to use the one end and let the other end open, right?
That's also subject to discussion. You have one standard for the basic humanity need. But again, I just give you an example. If he's a criminal, he already sentenced, already restrained. You cannot say that's not a human way to treat it. Clearly, basic thing in the private food provide a basic thing. But again, clearly there's a difference. Clearly, this is not a black-white issue. They got subject to a lot of conditions, the rule and regulation we made, all subject to the budget, subject to the capacity, subject to all the resources. Clearly, I think this is a good discussion because there's no absolutely right or wrong.
I would just say, oh, by the way, we shall take a moment out. When we come back, we'll continue discussing on this regard. With me today, my dear friend, is Dr. Wang, Jason Wang. We're talking about we shall stop the extreme left because we have been suffering a lot. Enough is enough. We got to put a stop. So stay with us. We'll be right back, please. Hello, dear friends, lovely audiences. Welcome back to the show, Jack Chow on the East-West Show with the GNE TV. With me today is my good friend, Dr. Jason Wang. He is a environmental professional, and yet he is here not talking about his water as his study. We're talking about as regular man-to-man talk as Californian to talk about our problems. For seeing those many things going too much on the left that might give us a lot of worry and might one day lead into something like a cultural revolution, who knows, right? Now, yes, back to the very point. with this jail overcrowd issue, though, if the federal level, the federal court at that level, delays their decision. For example, they look down at California. Do you have enough jail rooms, right? And if you release them, where do you want to go? Something like that. Make sure there is a way to go, right? Or they can look at our time. Oh, our time is not mature yet to be that fair in humanity. Well, I'm sorry, we got to keep you there the same way it is. Let's delay it. Well, let's postpone it for 10 years, something like that. If the court, the federal court, did it that way, though, we will not see the result at all. The Officer Boyer will not die at all. Do you think that's a way of consideration, please?
It is, but I saw another look at another angle. Actually, here I think legal system, like a superior court, I think is a pretty good way because they are kind of independent. Mm-hmm. But their decision, they're human. Their judge is also human. Their decision based on their perspective, also based on the Constitution, also depend on the argument presented to the court. Mm-hmm. I think maybe we didn't have it. They may not see this impact. Maybe state level didn't get enough evidence.
There's no feedback
argument.
To them, right?
Exactly. They will consider. I think, for example, sometimes you violated the federal law, but you still have argument to the court to see what we can do with the law, what is the remedies. I think we have a pretty balanced system, but again, human is human. So clearly, they may not provide enough data, or we may not have the data, then cause these kind of consequences.
In other words, at the federal level and the state level or the city levels, we're not on the same page.
But the only thing, nobody, I think, automatically provide information. That's why we prepare the court judgment. Everybody argue on the same platform. I have another example I heard yesterday, actually. California legislature, this type with water, my professions, try to already draft the legislation, say water is a basic service. It's human right. All the low income, whatever people need a guarantee for water. In order to do that, basically water also a business. You cannot shut off the people's water, even they don't pay for the service. You see this? Who is right or who is wrong?
All right, that's good, man.
But there's one pilot project already going on. They said, water company or city water services, they cannot shut down the water, but the people, they just don't pay for the bill. They say, I cannot afford it, I cannot afford it. Finally, accumulate $1 million deficit. What are we going to do? So clearly there's issues. Again, this is a very similar issue. You have to respect this is a paid service because water is not free. But again, you have to say what is enough. This kind of legislation will create a lot of trouble for the services. Who's going to pay for that $1 million deficit? It's not equal, not fair to the ratepayers.
That is a good example, all right? For, well, all depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about us as a society, if somebody fails to pay, you want to find out why they fail to pay. They're out of the job, they're out of income whatsoever, and they're taking advantages, right? So you handle the problem specifically to the kind of reason that they stop paying. And other than that, you don't want to control a tap, close or open, close, open to solve the problem. That's my take.
Actually, a little bit complicated than that. For example, we have enough resource to operate the system. If you go through the investigation, all this, what is the reason, how can I help, that's additional resource you have to put. That's additional people,
all right,
additional labor,
okay.
But what I say is water is not that expensive. Even you don't have a job, even the welfare money still should be able to pay off that bill. That's a priority. Maybe this guy still pay for the cell phone bill. They don't want to pay the water bill because the cell phone bill it's a private service.
Yeah,
You
okay.
cannot. The turn off is not a necessity, but it could be. That's another argument. Water is simply like a basic service, but it's still enterprise fund. It is paid for services. You cannot say, like you said, take this advantage. You say, I don't pay this first. I pay something first.
That's an example that specifically stands for going extreme left. They are using the concept of everybody born equal to allow this thing happen. Not even a time when they are not paying their water bill, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so that is a good example. The good example, like I said, unless you find out why they are not paying, if they really have problems that it can't be overcome, of course the state will provide them water. That's basic. That's very basic. That's why when you go emergency without money, they give you treatment right away, right? Because you need water. The basic. Using that as an excuse to go extreme left, I don't want to pay, right? So that is exactly the result, the consequences we see led by the extreme left.
Yeah, absolutely right.
So?
You know, this legislation is in Sacramento now. That's why, as a professional, the other concerned citizens, they argue, basically put a balance force, say, no, this is not going to work. This is not fair to other ratepayers. Clearly, they need to recognize, do not use this basic concept for everything, because clearly, I'm sure even the any kind of pay, water is so cheap.
Give you another example. California law, there is a PAGA law. You know PAGA law?
I'm not quite sure I know which one.
PAGA law is a Private Attorney General Act called PAGA. One of the PAGA laws regulates that in a business, everybody of your employee shall take lunch and a lunch break at the 5-hour mark. Right? Okay, now, this law only has put my friend, for example, Tom Menzel, in a very miserable position. He's a business owner for door frames, for doors, all kinds of doors, metal doors, right? It's a business that hires almost 200 employees. And it's a family tradition manufacturer that some of the workers, employees, the whole family works in the same workshop. And the longest employee stays in the company for 36 years.
Wow.
Right. Now, in lunchtime, it often ends up a situation, husband and wife eating together from the same lunchbox, right? And daughter and the son do the same thing, right? Now, they are doing different shifts. There are different times. For example, yours end up at 11:30, and mine probably by 12. There's a 30 minutes difference something. And for that, right, this business owner, Tom Menzel, is facing a lawsuit that will cost him $1.5 million. So if I quote from him, he says, the crazy laws is strangling us. So, okay, now, the statute for that law is that for equality, for humanism, and they need to eat 5 hours. As a result, business is closing down. You see?
Yeah.
You see that?
I think that's exactly the example we discussed, really tied of all these real life examples. I kind of agree. You know, I still think, let's look back. Why we need a law? Why we need a regulation? Why we need a government? It's really for the commonwealth, for the common. What do I mean common?
Okay.
Everybody's different. Everybody has their own religion, real tradition, own way of doing their life. I think the law really should emphasize majority.
Majority.
Not for every single case. If you talk for every single case, you lost.
Good point.
You got lost. For example, like you said, the eating time. You know, somebody probably 10 hours okay.
Yeah.
5 hours okay. For example, somebody, like you said, any bathroom, all this, different dress, all these things. It's really individual thing. But we really should. I think we have too much regulation.
Yeah.
to regulate much of the
It
details.
is what is wrong, the concept is wrong. And there are a handful of extreme lefts, right? They want to make a point. They want to make their voices heard. What they want to do, they pick up the very bottom line issue to make sure that nobody can go against them, right? For example, back then, when I was in school, I have one friend sitting next to me. He sits by the wall, right? What he does, he cracks the wall paint. He eats it. He likes it. And doctor later on found out that's his hobby whatsoever, something wrong with the system whatsoever. Instead of being punished for that, and then teachers move him away from the wall, make sure he doesn't do it again because he want to eat it, right? And then he himself steals back to still do it. Now, to not punish him, that's right. That's very humane, right? Okay, now, if I stood up, let's make a law, all right? Anybody who eats Paul wall paint shall deserve the right as if I'm not, like anybody who doesn't. That's a law. That's our law, right? So that is wrong. The concept is wrong. Do you think so?
Yeah, I think like example, we cannot regulate the extreme case. That's exactly
extreme case. Yes.
Extreme case is not belong to the government care, and that's really individual. Government you cannot, cover everything. Actually, the general distribution, my impression, the federal level, the form, any kind of table form is so complicated. Why? Because they want to cover every single scenarios. That's why I think the U.S., I think in general is healthy because look at the government here. I counted once. Government here belong to government. You can get a tax. You can have an elected body. Probably total like 90,000 governments in the United States. But again, majority of them, even like city government, we don't have, over 1 million population cities, only 10 of them. We never go large. Majority of government is small. It's a local level. With the local level, like a 30,000 population city, they much easier to do business. They do not cover all different scenarios. That's why I think a small government makes sense because that you can see what's the majority doing. For the upper government, it's very hard because everybody argue, they make a case because they don't know the details.
And also when they do make a case, they take the extreme. For example, they take the guy who is the wall paint to make a point, to make even laws out of it. My dear audience, today with my friend, Dr. Wang, Jason Wang, we're having lots of thought to our system that we are conceptually going left because we're led by the extreme left to go further and further on the left. We have strange laws that, as a consequence, business get killed. We have strange cases. As a consequence, shops are closed down. Stay with us. We'll be right back, please. Hello, dear friends, lovely audiences. Welcome to the East-West Show. My name is Jack Chow. I'm with the East-West Show with G&E TV. With me today, my good friend, Dr. Jason Wang. Even though he is an environmental specialist, professional, he is here today as a regular Joe, regular Jack, or whoever.
Concerned citizen.
Concerned citizen to talk about the problem we have. The title for today's show is To Stop the Extreme Left. We're gone there too far. We can't afford going any further, right? Go. Back to the issue though. Speaking of law, I believe that you made it very clear. The law is made on behalf of majority. Am I right?
Yes.
On behalf of protection or for the protection of the majority. If laws are made for the protection of one particular case though, there has no representation at all there are laws, for example, the amber law for highway, freeway signs, the amber law, right? Using the amber name to typically point out that's the case, the nature of the case, because there are lots of amber cases there, right? That stands for majority using that amber as a stand, right? If I create something to say to protect my roommate, my classmate, who eats the wall paint, make it a wall paint law, does that protect the majority? No, right? So that is the problem.
Yeah, actually, kind of surprised. People, we have a common sense. Common sense is built on the judgment, your experience.
So what's wrong with common sense?
Your knowledge. Actually, surprised. I give you an example. I always think about it this way. Why everybody take airplane, right? Why nobody has a parachute? You think about it. There's a case. There's a chance. There's everybody knows there's risk over there. Why you don't make a law say everybody has to parachute, everybody has to survive if it's a crash, if something happens? Why? Clearly, there's a common sense over there. You cannot do that for every single case. For this case that we know, you even provide a parachute, you need a training. It's not manageable to do that. But again, people can tolerate that. But people cannot tolerate for other things. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to me.
You don't provide a parachute because with a parachute you can't survive. It is not a parachute that make you survive. It is the training that makes you survive. Right?
With the parachute also, you need
with the parachute with training, right? And then prerequisite, you were pre-trained, right? So for that, everybody take for a fact.
The risk.
Right? And then if there comes an argument, say, out of 100, there might be one who are trained. Why don't you provide that to him?
That's a good example.
And then with that, we make a law, and with extra burden to airline has to provide a parachute to everybody, right? So that's the point. Another good example would be the same-sex marriage. Amongst the population, oh, by the way, I have a disclaimer to make. Every time when I say something important like this, though, I want to make this following disclaimer that whatever I say represents me, myself, Jack Chow, as a male, as a father of two, myself only. It doesn't do anything to represent the show, the organization either, nothing, myself. Totally my personal point of view, right? Now, here's the following. Look at the population, though. Could anybody give me a number about a percentage of same-sex who want to get married?
I haven't, I don't have the number, but again, there's
again, there's going to be very small, right?
Yeah, it's still.
Okay, now you make laws that overturns the whole thing in the concept. As a consequence, at least one bakery shut down to protect them. Right now, with or without the legalization, they are there anyway. I wish them happy. I congratulate them happy, and I'm pretty okay. I'm totally okay with it.
Yeah.
Why make a law to say okay?
That's also you're happy, but you impact other people. If you create a law because of that, I can agree with you. All these things, your own choice. Clearly, everybody's different. It should be different. It's a color of the world. It's good. But again, we don't need make a law, make everybody same.
Yeah.
That's totally out of question. Why do you want to make a law everybody same? Also the protection, you can think about it. Any kind of extreme left question or issues.
And people even bully out the law, right? With the law, the couple came there, say, hey, we want a cake. And when refused, they could go elsewhere, another shop to do it, right? They bullied the law, say, hey, by law, you got to do it. Yeah. Or let's go to court. So, sure enough, they went to court and the bakery lost, right? So, I agree with the thing. I agree with the decision. I support the couple. I do whatsoever, no problem. But why do we have to end up that way?
I think we can recognize, society developed to a certain stage like this, got a lot of resources. We start to look at small things, minor things. It's good, but it got to be balanced.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
you're
you
right.
waste a lot of resources on this.
You're right. You're right.
Why those kind of issues never happened before? Never happened in other countries, the developing country, because it's a more important thing to worry.
Sure.
I think we worry because we got a lot of resources. We got to worry a lot of details.
Yeah.
It's a good
in
thing.
other word, you're a good guy. I'm a good guy, right? You're the good guy not smoking. Am I right? I'm a good guy smoking, right? Okay, now, so shall we make a law say smokers deserve the same political right as non-smokers? Do we necessarily have to do so? We don't. Now, if somebody propose a bill like that, you dare not say
Yes,
that you don't agree. If I'm in the legislature, I make a law, say smokers shall deserve the same right as non-smokers, my fellow legislators will not dare say their disagreement.
You're right. It's all politically correct. Politically correct. Exactly.
If they say they're discriminating the smoking community.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
I know that is bad, but I choose to do so. If you choose to do so, okay, do it.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. Okay, I support you. Go ahead. Like that. You don't necessarily have to make a law to let do it. So that's the extreme left we're talking about. My dear friends, today we're sharing lots of thoughts from each other with my friend, Dr. Jason Wang. Jason Wang is a environmental professionals. Today he is here as a concerned citizen, as a concerned American citizen, talking about America being led to the extreme, far extreme left. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hello, dear friends, my lovely audiences. Welcome back to the East-West Show, Jack Chow with GNE TV. Joining me in the discussion about stopping extreme left is my good friend, Dr. Jason Wen, W-E-N. Jason is a professional, and he's here not talking on behalf of his profession. He is here as a concerned citizen to talk about our problem. Our problem being that we, as the United States, are being led too far, too much to the left. Enough is enough. Let's put a stop to it. Okay, now that you're in the water business, right? Let me ask you a water question. Your answer is not going to be official, just a personal point of view, right? Okay, now, do you recall that in the northern part of California, we have a species called smelt?
Yeah, Delta smelt.
Delta smelt, right? Okay, Delta smelt. How big a part have we sacrificed to save that little species?
Huge.
Huge.
Yeah. I remember that's about 7 years ago. By the way, Delta smelt is one of the endangered species identified through the Federal Indigenous Species Protection Act. That's why there's monitoring data show Delta smelt population is dropping, correlated with the water amount we took from Northern California. The federal judge, said, this is a correlation. We got to put a stop over there. That year, as you remember clearly, the front page of LA Times, it's a man-made drought in the Southern California.
Yeah.
That may stop pretty much almost 100% of water from Northern California.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, now, of course, it is right to deal with the species, to save that species, right? Okay, now, when compared to human, when compare the fact that we have to suffer, we have to make Californians suffer as the drought, which LA Times calls the man-made drought. Do we necessarily have to do so?
There's a little bit of argument that basically that fish is not only one kind of fish, they classify it as an indicator of an ecosystem. That's why. I think again, it's a question of balance. We made that, we went through that process. Clearly, we have enough resources to make it happen. I think this is really similar question. It's not right or wrong. It just to be balanced. I think, like you said, this studio in the U.S., you got a TV station here. We can throw different opinions. We can discuss these different issues. Also, you don't need to represent the station to discuss the issue. That's what makes it happen.
One thing for sure, right? Now that we have to sacrifice whole California to save a little fish like this, because the endangered is dying out, why is Kelly Thomas killed? You know Kelly Thomas?
Yeah, I think I heard that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So does that mean that the little fish worse more than Kelly Thomas?
But again, you cannot put this on a vote because clearly there's a lot of circumstances. That's real life. Exactly. Any issue, there are two parts. In the U.S., I can find out we don't really talk in the main media, left and right, too much. It's a little bit different than back into China. We can tell we know either left or right, always something. Again, this reflects any society. It's like a balance. I think here we balance it's much better than other places. Clearly, we don't because of this we kill each other. We knock down each other.
Once again, the word balance, right?
But again, it's a danger. It's a good topic to discuss to remind the people we got to deal with the real issue. We got to deal with the balance.
Yes, you're right. In the world, in the entire world, is there any other species that faces the more dangerous situation like the Northern Californian smelt?
But again, this is the time and the circumstances. For example, 50 years ago, we don't worry about that because we are more important to get water.
All right.
Because we have water, we have enough water, we waste a lot of water. Now you have a chance to worry about those things. It's again, it is a balance by the time and the resources, all these kind of things.
Next show, I'm gonna do a big time. I'm gonna find out by percentage how big a percent that we sacrifice for the protection of the small species smelt. Right?
Yeah. Also, again, this is at least the current science thing. This is one of the indicator fish, microlife, to reflect the ecosystem. That's why put a kind of more important, for the judge to say, hey, if you can handle this kind of water supply, I'm going to stop you to pumping 100%. You only pump 10% or 20%,
Yeah, that's not unfair to California, and the water thing is just one example.
Exactly. Yeah.
There are many of the same example to me. All right, now, the other day I was interviewing a friend of mine. He is the mayor of Downey, right, Mr. Sean Ashton. Mr. Sean Ashton himself is a teacher for fifth grade. He and I were discussing about the same-sex marriage law, right? I asked him, I said, I'm not challenging you. I'm not trying by no means giving you a hard time. I just want you to share your mind with me. I do the same thing. How do you handle your classroom when you're questioned by the kids where a baby come from? You know what he says? He says, as time goes along, question will be answered. If they don't know today, they will know next year. They will know 5 years later.
That's a politically correct answer.
Politically, he is correct.
Nobody dared to challenge the answer to that in front of the public. That's the problem.
Politically, Mr. Ashton is correct. And practically, Mr. Ashton is correct.
Yeah.
Right? Because he can't say anything going against that.
Yeah.
Because that is the law. That law, not only law, represents some concept that they want to go left without any obstacles. So now they're on the left. Here at this show, I dare say anything as long as I say whatever I say represents only myself. I thank Dr. Wen, my friend Jason Wen, very much for coming here to share his thoughts, and we even stole one of the little fish examples to indicate. Well, to my audience, thank you very much for watching, and to Dr. Wen, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Jack. It's nice to talk to
Sure.
you on the topics.
Okay.